everyone. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eventful Life. You guys know every week on Thursday at 1 o'clock, same time, same day, same channel, maybe a different game. But as of lately, it's been the same. It's been the same game. We still in this pandemic. And we are still trying to figure it all out, right? So I'm so excited to be back with you guys. You know, I miss you every week. And this time I am bringing somebody who I just love. I love her. I love her because she brings the thunder, okay? She just keeps it real, guys. And so today we're going to be talking about finding your voice. I said what I said. And I know some of you are probably like, okay, Janelle, what exactly are we talking about here? But it's really about, guys, finding your voice in a multitude of situations, you know, as women, as mompreneurs, as you know, individuals who are currently trying to figure out how to move forward in a pandemic, you know, professionally and personally with things going on at home and at work. And then let's not forget, we're also having to wake up every morning, possibly to another person of color being discriminated against, being killed, you know, just racism that has been mounting. And so there are a number of reasons why we need to use our voice, but the problem sometimes is just finding your voice in all of the calamity. So I'm excited to have Terrica here, who is the owner of Cocktails and Details, which I absolutely love. I love the name of that, by the way.
Thank you.
So Terrica, thank you for joining me, love.
No, thank you so much for having me. I am so thrilled to be here. You know, I've watched several episodes. You know, I absolutely adore you. You have been instrumental to me throughout this whole process and like maybe quieting my voice sometimes. You know what I mean? Because there have been moments where I have done something and I get a text from you and you're like, so are you okay? Or do you need bail money? Like, let me know where you are. I need a pulse check on you. So right. I am just absolutely thrilled to be here with you, and I can't thank you enough for having me.
But you're right. We need those pulse checks. Like,
we do.
Right now, we need to be checking in, like, you know, yes, everybody. Like, hey.
Friends, especially your mouthy friends. Please check on your mouthy friends, because we are not okay out here. We are
okay. I love it. I love it. Well, you know what? I would say, you know, your mouthy friends or your friends who obviously have found their voice, those are the people that you definitely need to be looking at in a number of ways. And we'll jump into it here in a minute. But, you know, let's just first, let me rewind it back because, you know, I was about to go all the way to the end, but we got to start at the beginning. So, so, you know, I know for one, women in particular, especially us women who are moms, but also we are working women. You know, for a long time, we have been, I feel like we have been trying to kind of dismantle this myth of sorts of what that is supposed to look like. Like society has created this, you know, if you're a mom, then you need to really be at home with your kids. Like there are certain duties that are expected of us. There are certain roles that, you know, within that mom scope that we are supposed to play. And the duties that we, you know, that we take on, I don't always feel like we necessarily have to be the ones to take them on, but I feel like society has kind of created this impression that it is. Yes. And so I want to ask you, Terrica, you know, how was that for you growing up? Did you see those kind of societal roles play out in your own family? And kind of how has that shaped, you know, how you decided to create your family, like, you know, for you?
Well, you know, I was super blessed because my mother was able to stay home with me until I was about in the first grade, I think.
That's awesome.
And my mother was so instrumental to my early learning. My mother taught me how to read when I was 2.5. She taught me how to write when I was, 3.
That's so good.
So laying that foundation was, if she only knew. I know she's
right.
like,
I was like, she didn't know the groundwork she was laying.
Yeah, right. Like I talked before I walked, and she was like, I should have known. I should have known then. I just should have known. But I was very blessed to have that. And the dynamic changed for me, Janelle, because my parents have always been so good to me, and they blessed me. I was able to go to private schools my entire childhood, with the exception of when we moved to LA, I went to a public school. But those first years when I started school, we were in the city. Okay. And I was surrounded by people who looked like
me. Is this the city of
Baltimore.
Atlanta? I just want to frame it.
Baltimore. No,
Baltimore. Okay,
I'm a Baltimore. I ain't no Georgia peach. I'm a Baltimore crab. So that should explain everything that you need to know. Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, it's no, I come from 2 big Southern families, but I am a big city up north girl that is now a transplant down in the South. But the dynamic changed, because then when she went back to work, we moved, and I went to schools outside of the city into the suburbs. Okay. And then there weren't a lot of people that looked like me.
Right.
So then it was, I don't want to say I was made to feel like I was less than, but I was made to feel like I was lacking something, because my mother wasn't there to pick me up from school. My mother wasn't there to help me go over my homework. And then, I think at 3rd grade, up until I started driving, I was pretty much a latchkey kid. I would catch public transportation home, walk home, do my homework, eat, and wait for somebody to come home. So I feel like I kind of had the best of both worlds. But when you see it through a different viewpoint, you can see how people put these social constructs on women, how they put them on families. And it's always very important for me now as a mother that I explain to my children that, not all families look the same, but all families mean the same thing. You know what I mean? Another family is not less than because the mom works, or because there's only a mom, or because there's 2 dads, or there's 2 moms, or better yet, that there is no parent in the house at all. Maybe the family is an aunt that's taking care of somebody, or it's grandma or grandpa. So I feel like I had to retrain my own thought process in raising up my children, so that they understood that all families look different and they don't lack because of certain things.
That's right. That's right. No, I love the fact that you said, it's almost like you felt all of a sudden when you guys made that transition, like other kids or other people made you felt like you were lacking. Like it wasn't
right.
like,
and I was like, I'm not
wasn't like you felt like you were lacking at all.
At all.
So again, that's the misinterpretation that, like you said, in order to have this, this fulfilling life as a kid, or to be, or to grow up, with a quote unquote good family, that there has to be certain things in place. I too was raised by, I was raised by a single mother, and I had a great childhood.
Right.
I enjoyed my childhood.
I'm fine.
Right. I'm like, I didn't feel like I was missing anything or neglected or anything. So
if anything, I feel like it added to me. You know what I mean? I had to learn how to take care of myself, and I had to learn how to make myself more productive, because, listen, it's a safe space. We all friends here. When you got a Black mama and she tells you to take that chicken out of the freezer, it better be thought out by the time she gets home. So, and that's for any parent. You know what I mean? When you have those standards in place and it's left to you to meet them, that adds to your character.
Yes,
and
so
that just means a lot to me. So no, I never felt like I was lacking, but other people did.
And you don't mess with what, like you said, what a Black mom says, right? Like
at all.
If she tells you to do this, number 1, number 2, and number 3, like if you skip
in that order
and move to number 3 because you thought that was best, it's like, oh no, that's not the instruction.
What you're gonna get is, I don't know who you've been hanging around, and I don't know what your little friends do or what their moms do, but I'm not them. Okay.
Right. Okay. okay? And don't we use those same phrases with our own kids? That's so funny.
Right. And I'm like, ooh, I'll call her and I'll be like, you just came out my mouth. What happened? What happened? And then when I had a girl, oh my God, I heard her cackling, and it was not out of joy or anything. She was just like, welcome.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of like, see, like my mom would say, keep on living, you know, she's like, so I like the fact that that you pointed out, really honestly, we all need to retrain our minds and our thoughts about what, a family unit looks like, because today it looks, I've seen across the spectrum that it does look very different in each household, and it's about what works best for you and your family.
Absolutely. Listen, my mother always said this, and it used to get on my nerves, but now I understand it, and I say it all the time. I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. Whatever you do in your house so that you can survive and you can thrive and you can live happily, God bless you. I am so happy about it. I have no right to tell you, oh, well, you should stay home or you should go to work. Families look different, and family contributions look different. Where those contributions intersect, where you have people assist, you have a lot of aunts and grandparents. My father was very instrumental in, the raising of my children when he was here. So that all looks very different. And I feel like we need to go back to that village mentality instead of that individualistic.
We talked about that on a couple of episodes ago. Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, we all should be in this together and making sure our village as a unit survives, as opposed to who has more in the village or who isn't doing what I think so-and-so should be doing. And like you said, I really had to change that mindset for me, because as I grew up and I went to college, and then I had children. I got married and I had children. It was like, well, you hear people say, well, women can't have it all. You know what I mean? They can't be a mother, and, they can't work for themselves, or they can't be in business. And it's like, or if you can have it, you can't have it at the same time. And that's not really anything that I personally subscribe to. I feel like you can have whatever you want if you make time for it. It's just like anything else in the world. Now, please don't misunderstand me, Janelle. We talked about this yesterday. By no means, under any circumstances, would Iyanla Van Zant walk into this house and be like, you know what, you're good. You know what, everything is fine. She would not do that. There is rarely any balance going on here. It looks like a seesaw on
Girl, balance is a unicorn, okay? It just...
Balance is the dirtiest B word besides the other B word. It is, it's just a bit much, but we find ourselves holding ourselves hostage to what other people think it should be. I have it all. I am so blessed that I have it all. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a friend. So I have it all, but I have it where I need to have it. I have my focus where I need to have it.
Because this is, and I love that, you already brought that up, because it kind of segues really well into kind of the next thought. But that is literally the reason why, the Eventful Life was born, is because I got so tired of people saying women can't do both. You can't have this and that, or you can't have the career and the family life, or even to a degree, well, you can have it all, but you just need to go harder. I'm like, well, wait a minute.
When do I get to enjoy anything?
Right. I'm like, so we just gonna die trying to have it all? Like, help me understand. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go up out of here yet. I'm not ready.
Right. I had things to do.
Right. So my thing is, well, what about if we set our own bar and our own time and our own terms for how we want to have it, when we want to have it? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, who exactly are we in competition with? Like, who exactly are we setting this bar? Who's setting this bar for us? Like, it's my bar. I'ma set it. So I love that you literally are like, no, I have it all. Because
I do.
You do.
And it's not an either or for me. For some people, it's not I am a mom and I am a business owner. It is and also. I am a mom and also a business owner, you know what I mean? And I don't feel like men never have to choose. And that's what always has pissed me off. Not once do they have to choose. Not once do, you know, it looks like they get to have it all. They get the excuses of not doing, you know, as much or contributing
and nobody
as much. And
it.
it's okay.
Nobody
questions it. But like when they do anything, it's like, oh my God, you're so amazing. And I'm like, I do that all day. Like, what? So it's, that's just, and no disrespect to the men, but the dichotomy is there. You know what I mean?
The dichotomy is definitely there. Like, that's one of the things I appreciated. I've been listening to Michelle Obama's podcast, and that's one of the things I appreciated in her last episode is she's like, you know, I mean, let's be real. Like, there is a dichotomy. There still are things that heavily weigh on women that do not weigh on men. You know, she's like, number one, she's like, men can't give birth. We do, you know, I'm like, so I'm like, there you have it. Okay.
I got the tiger stripes to prove it. Yeah. I did all of that. Yeah.
So I was like, if we just stop right there, like, that's it. Okay. But let's talk about, you know, how we as women find our voice, right? So when we see that, it's like, okay, this is how I want to live. This is the way that I want to take this journey. And we start looking to find our voice. Like, what does that look like? What does that sound like? And being okay with using it in order to advocate for ourselves and for others, you know. Tell me, to you, Terrica, what's the importance of finding your voice? Because I've thought about this a lot, and I know for one, I've found my voice in some areas, but then some areas, it took me a while. It took me a while to really, like, kind of like filling out your clothes. It took me a while to, like, fill out that part of my voice.
That's so valid. That is so valid. That's so valid.
So what do you think the importance is in that?
You know, I speak at all of these different conferences. I have a podcast, and, you know, I do appearances like this and webinars. And I always get people who come to me afterwards and they say, oh my gosh, I wish I could, you know, talk like you or be like you. And I'm like, you can. And they're like, oh no, I couldn't. And I'm like, you can. Like, here is the first step in commanding your voice. Is to say no. No is a complete sentence. No has so much power in it. No is you standing up for yourself, either for your brand, for your family, for your values. Even just saying no and knowing that you don't have to qualify it and you don't have to explain it. That is a great step in finding your voice. You can handle all of the other stuff later, as far as what it is that you want to stand up for, what it is that you want to really be vocal about. But the first step in finding your voice is to know what to know, meaning know what to say no to. So not accepting everything that comes your way. You know what I mean? Like, you've seen me. I felt like I was getting on so many people's nerves because I was everywhere when the pandemic hit, and then, you know, when all of the unrest happened, it was like, oh my God, Terrica.
Right.
And I kind of met this thing where I was like, well, I said my goal, I wanted to be in demand. So literally, I ordered everything on my plate. You understand what I'm saying?
You spoke it up,
right. It's like, I did this, so I can't complain about it. And you know how when we were children, our parents would say, you know, don't let your eyes be bigger than your stomach. And I feel like we have to have that same way as well. Don't let your aspirations and your dreams, those eyes, be bigger than your hustle if you are not going to work for it. You know what I mean? So that is so important. If you just want to dream, then stay asleep. Stay asleep. Let everybody else wake up and get it going. Like, but knowing what when I knew what I had to say no, I couldn't appear on everything, because honestly, it was so draining. And not just talking and getting the Crayola people to do my makeup and, you know, getting in front of the camera, make sure I put the sun right in the sky so I had the right lighting. It was just the content was exhausting.
Right.
Think about that. Think about, how many things you obligate your children to, how many things that you obligate yourself to on behalf of your children.
Yeah.
And is it taking away from you in the big picture? Is it taking away from your relationships? Is it taking away from, you being a good mother? Is it taking away from you being a good sister, friend, volunteer, whatever it is? Then you have to know when to know. And that's so important. So, it's so true. It's
right.
You want to find your voice?
Because as
letters.
women, we think, we think that we need to say yes to everything and everyone. I recently have become very friendly with boundaries. And so, I think that boundaries go hand in hand with our friend no. And, it is, I used to think of boundaries as like this thing that like keeps you and people away from you. And I'm like, no, it's to keep you close to the people that you need to stay close.
Absolutely.
And
because what happens a majority of the time, Janelle, if we get overstretched too much, we don't lash out at the people on the outside. We lash out on the people on the inside. Right. So whatever it is that you're working for, you're working so hard to do, it actually has an adverse reaction on yourself and on, your family. And it's like, by nature, we are so nurturing and we are so compassionate and we want to be so involved, that having those boundaries in place and knowing why we have those boundaries is so important. So important to finding our voice, and all of our voices need to be heard, because what happens is that when you allow yourself to be drowned out, or you allow yourself to be very diminutive, you allow louder voices who may only speak for one faction become the biggest thing in the room. And that can't be, because especially right now when we see that there is so much unrest, there's, with the pandemic as well, there are so many things where people need to speak up and they just don't. Oh, it's not the right time, or I could never do that, or and you know what, you can find your own lane. But you have to be very comfortable with who you are. And I feel like no definitely gets you there for sure.
I agree. Totally. It's almost like learning. It's almost like when kids are learning how to talk, right? They latch on to like one word and you're like, dang it.
Say something else.
Right. If it's a word that you're like, no, just like no, right? Like I can remember when my 6-year-old was 2, and that was the first word he learned. No. And I was like, boy, you gonna stop saying that? He was like, no.
And they mean it. They mean it when they're that little. They mean it wholeheartedly.
But every time he said it, he got louder, he got more emphatic, he got more comfortable with it. And it became more powerful, because I do believe there was a part of him that started to understand in the context of our, of our dialogue, what it meant. And so I love that you use that, because I think we're the same way. Like, even if we are trying out our voice or trying to figure it out, you got to start somewhere. And why not start with you,
and exactly
what you want or what you don't want. But then as you go, obviously you start to test it out. You get more comfortable, you get more stronger in, your convictions. And I think you also, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm embarking on 40 in like a month or whatever, but there is some part of you that you just are like, I don't care if
you just don't.
Other people don't think that this is what I should believe.
Listen, and I tell folks this all of the time. What you think about me is none of my business. Even when I get up on stage and I talk exactly like this, because I knew that when I wanted to embark on this, that I wanted to be as authentic as possible, because there are so many fake people in our industry. So many people that do the whole do as I say and not as I do type of thing. I wanted to be authentic, and I wanted to be very warm, and I wanted to be compelling and compassionate, because I too had that experience where people shunned me and I felt like I was too much and not enough all at the same time. But I felt like the best thing that I could do in a way where I could be so successful was for me to be myself. So when I get up on stage, before I hit any content, I tell people, listen, It's two things that you should know about me. I call everybody honey, baby, y'all, or girl. And if you have a problem with that, that is between you and your therapist. I hope y'all work it out. I don't care. I am the only one that I've got, Janelle, the only
You're
one.
not from the South originally.
Yeah, there is not a spare me in the garage. You know what I mean? Where I can be like, oh, I broke this one, or maybe they'll like this one better and I can put it on.
Yeah.
There is so much work that I had to do to get here, starting with no, to embrace who I am and to embrace the journey that I wanted to go on so that I could be a better woman, so that I could be a better mother, so I could be a better daughter, a better sister, a better friend.
So you know that you've done the work, basically.
Yes. Well, no, not done.
Yeah.
I continue to do the work because it is an everyday battle for me, but it stops at anybody who, listen, I love the meme that says, if it is not adding to your bank account or your edges, baby, you don't need it. If there is anything that is taking away from me more than it deposits, it has to go. There will never be anybody in this whole city, county, state, country, globe, atmosphere, none of it that's ever going to change the way that I feel about me.
Yeah.
So I had to be comfortable about who I am and the voice that I had. Now, I get it. Not everybody's going to be Terrica and say things, you know, be all sassy and everything, but everybody should advocate for themselves.
Exactly.
Feel comfortable in advocating for yourself, then you can advocate for someone else who has been where you were, where they didn't feel comfortable. That's where I'm at now.
Right.
I am loud. I mean what I say. I said what I said. I am responsible for what I said and not how you understood it, because you know, sometimes when people hear things, they hear them through their own filter. If they come to you with any negativity, it filters through that negativity. No, I said what I said, but you are responsible for how you took it, not me.
How you receive it. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't have nothing to do with that. That's between you and your God. Y'all work that out. I have nothing to do with that whatsoever. However, I know that there are people who are not where I'm at right now that need me to say the things that I can say and to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
So that until they build up that confidence, until they build up that resilience to speak up for themselves.
Exactly. And I believe that's probably the most important part about finding your voice is, like you just said, there are other people who, you know, need you to find your voice, because especially if you have a platform or if you are a public speaker or just, you know, or just really anybody who wants to impact, you know, and be profound in their impact, then you need to find that voice, because there are other people who are waiting for you to find that voice so that they can then, you know, step into their voice, to be honest, you know.
Or you know what, or so that they don't feel like they're alone. You know how many times if we say something and people will come up to you, and it could be anything, they'd be like, I thought I was the only one. That is such a lonely feeling. That is so isolating, and it can be so destructive sometimes to feel so passionately about something, whether that it's right or that it's wrong, and to feel like you're the only one that feels that way until someone speaks up. So
and even more so right now in this pandemic, where while we all know that we're in this pandemic, you know,
some of us do.
Some of us into a different boat than others, and just in terms of how it's impacting us, right? And so I think it's even heightened right now that you would feel like, oh, nobody could understand what I'm going through or understand some of the struggles I'm having. But then when somebody says it and calls a spade, you're like, oh my gosh, thank God, you know.
Yes.
You know, so I think that I really think this pandemic has heightened even more so, or brought to the forefront even more so, why you truly do need to find your voice, you know. And then let's also talk about the racial injustice. So I know, right? So we're going to go there because, you know, I will say that of anything that I've ever been okay with, and this is what I was alluding to earlier about, you know, I found my voice very early on in advocating for myself, advocating as a woman in business. But a part of me never, until recently, I won't say never, but it was not vocal, right? Loudly vocal about it until recently, as it relates to racial injustice. I think, I look back at how I was raised. We didn't talk about, we talked about those things around the table or in the comfort of our home, but we didn't talk about those things outside amongst everyone else. So, and I'm not gonna lie, girl, when you spoke out after things, the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, I remember seeing your video, your testimonial, and about your own experiences. And not only did it, not only did it evoke such emotion in me, but it, along with a sequence of other things, just really awakened my soul. Like, it's not like I hadn't experienced it before, but it was like, okay, if you sit by and be quiet about these things, even if you were raised not to speak out about it, but if you sit by, what is that saying to your kids? Yeah. And that's what changed the game for me when I started thinking about that. But I will tell you, it started by seeing you, girl. And I was like, OMG. What? I mean, you really brought the thunder. But you were very clear. Like, I could tell you were very clear about your messaging and the purpose in which you want. Because I'd seen other people talking, getting on and talking about it. And, and let me be clear, like, please don't go live if you don't have something to say. I know we're talking about finding your voice, but
or write it in your diary.
It also needs to be, to a degree thought out and have a purpose, right? And I just felt like you definitely made sure like there was a purpose behind what you had to say. So can you just talk to me a little bit about that and how it made you feel? Was that something you even knew waking up that day that you were going to do? And what were your concerns, if any, I don't know, about doing it? You might be like, I know you, Terrica, so you probably was like, listen.
Live. That wasn't the first time that I've ever spoken out. When Trayvon Martin was killed, I spoke out, and I did a picture of my entire family in hoodies. And I got a lot of pushback from that because people were like, why would you involve your children in that? And, why would you put that at the forefront? And my children are biracial, but my children have a Black mother, you know what I mean? And, at any given day, depending on their shade in the summertime, they can look like Black children, you know what I mean? So it was very important to me that they knew and that they understood. The next time that I spoke out was when Philando Castile was shot. He was killed. He was murdered. And I got some pushback then, and people were like, oh my gosh, you are so racist and you are a police hater. And I was like, okay, well, my husband was white and my father was a cop, so was he. Right. So I actually, I can tell you right then and there, I remember growing up, I was raised in a precinct pretty much. Like when I did my first pageant, and I had to get all of my sponsorships, it was done in 2 hours because every cop, and I don't know if my father like strong armed some of his colleagues or what, but every cop had paid money. I grew up there, and I can even remember being there one day and watching a suspect attack my father. And I had to grab my sister and take her out. But I grew up in a law enforcement family. I am not anti-police. police at all. So that's why I was like, people will say things and they don't know you
Know your
because
background. Exactly.
they automatically hear whatever trigger word it is
Mm-hmm.
that they want to set it off that they can use to discount anything that, you know,
That you're
you
saying.
say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I got a lot of from people I didn't even know. I'm like, why are all of these people sending me all of these nasty grams? But then when the situation with Ahmaud happened, and again, you know, a lot of people know I'm right here. That is literally maybe 12 minutes away from my house.
Yeah.
When that started, Janelle, it was maybe 3 lines in our newspaper. 3 lines in our, it got no play whatsoever.
Wow. Like a lot of killings.
Always, right? And this is what we see all of the time. And that's what infuriated me.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, well, I knew what it was. I called my mom when I first read it, and I was like, did you hear about this? She was like, this does not sound right. As a community, Black people knew that something was wrong.
Yeah.
It was not until the video was released of his actual shooting that everyone got all up in arms. And I had such a visceral reaction to watching that, and I could not understand why. And I guess it was my brain protecting me that you have this reaction because you had the same thing happen to you. And I had to reconcile with that. I had to deal with that. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I have to say something because there are many non-people of color colleagues that I have and friends that I have that think that it does not happen to the people that they know, that they don't know anybody that this is just some random person on the news. And I'm like, no, it happened to me. You know what I mean? If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Anybody, right.
You know, I have my own Breonna Taylor moment. Thank God I'm here to see it. I had cops bust into our house when I was 15. No knock warrant. My father was livid. They had the wrong house. So it's just like, you need to use your voice and make sure that you say these things so people know. And so when I made that video after,
because for some reason it becomes more real, I don't know why.
I should not have to. You should not have to know me in order for you to get it. But if that's what's going to take, then you know what? Fine. Let's open up the confessional. Here is everything that has happened to me.
Wow.
And it angers me because people always put the onus on Black people to fix it. And I felt like that racism is not a problem that Black people need to fix. We don't benefit from it. We suffer from it. So the people that benefit from it most need to be the ones to dismantle it.
And we didn't create it.
We didn't create it at all. So that was the purpose of that video. And I think I did that back in May, I believe.
Yeah,
and
it was
like,
okay because it was right.
A couple days later, it had like 10,000 shares and all of this. And I was like, oh my God. And then like these nasty comments started coming in and somebody was like, you're not even Black. How can you even talk about this? And I'm like, you know something I don't, because
So what are you?
I need to have some conversations with some people because I know what I am.
Right.
Like, it's like, again, people are looking for something to find wrong as opposed to saying, I can't believe that happened and I need to work harder. And that was my thing at the end of that video. I said, you know, don't tell me you're sorry. You know, tell me how bad you feel about it. Tell your racist boss. Tell your racist uncle. Stand up and use your voice and stop it. Stop it right then and there, because I'm not around when you hear all of the jokes and then when the jokes, the stereotypes, the tropes, and when you allow those things to happen, you promulgate it, you proliferate it, you let it be like a mogwai, you know what I mean? You fed it after midnight and now the damn thing has just exploded. Right, exactly. It's duplicated everywhere. So I need to use my voice, but I needed other people to use their voices as well. Then George Floyd happened. And I was just like, oh.
And so, you know, when I experienced, you know, your testimony, I think I had shared with you, I had something not similar, but had something happen to me when I was younger. And so then George Floyd happened. And I literally had the exact same experience where I felt all this stuff kind of bubble up to the surface. And I know a lot of people in the Black community have had these experiences, things that have been tucked away back, wherever in the chest, down deep, because you're like, we're
I can't. It's survival mode. You know what I mean?
That's what I was gonna say. We're prone to just keep moving. We're like, okay, it happened. So what? Let's move forward. I'm over that.
And that is ancestrally ingrained in us. And that is so sad. We have never had a chance to process anything because we're constantly told to let it go. The Holocaust, we can say never forget. 9/11, which is tomorrow, we'll say never forget. But if anybody brings up slavery or Jim Crow, it's get over it. That was such a long time ago. And if you actually look and read studies, you see that this can be ingrained in your DNA, this suffering, your reactions to these things can actually be passed down to you. So it's not something that you just get over. You know what I mean?
No, it's not.
Absolutely right.
Which is why it's still here. You know what I mean? So, and when I mean it's still here, meaning us feeling the way that we do, and with this pandemic putting everything on pause, like literally halt. Like, no, y'all gonna
had
watch.
to see it, right? You could not look away.
Right. You gonna learn today. Like,
you had to look at it.
Yeah, you had to look at it. And I think with George Floyd, I had the exact same reaction where I was like, okay, I had not dealt with that. I had not dealt with how I was treated when I was in elementary school. And so it all came bubbling to the surface, but I just knew, like you, that I had to do something. And I think a part of finding your voice is going back to what you said very earlier on in our conversation, is that you have to allow yourself just to be authentic in how you feel and in how you convey how you feel, right? So you can't be like, okay, well, I'm gonna package it first. I'm gonna package it all nice and neat, and I'm gonna tuck it away, and then I'm gonna tweak this. And no, you have to be okay with, this is how I feel. Here is
and it's valid.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's valid. And I know that other people need to hear this. You know, like you said, I know that I have colleagues who don't think that this could ever happen to to somebody they know, but it has. And you needed them to understand, the same Terrica that you be kikiing with, and that you be like, oh, I love you on stage. Like, no. Same girl,
Same girl. Happened to her.
Yeah.
Same
so
one.
I love that. What I want to ask you though is, because here's the other part of why I believe sometimes we even when we find our voice, we're hesitant to then use it, right? Because that's the next step. You find it, but then how do you use it, right? And you have to make a choice. Like, you made a choice to use your voice. Each time you decided, you made a choice. But again, I think that one of the things that holds us back is we're concerned about the backlash, right? And whether that be personal or professional, because you're also a business owner. We both are. And so what I know is that every time I step out here and use my voice, there are people who are like, okay, I'm probably not going to ever do business with her because I don't like her stance on that, or I don't like the way she said that. Did you have those concerns?
No. And in part because I knew I am a Black woman before I am a speaker, a wedding planner, a designer, or anything. So all of that can go away. You know what I mean? Right now, the wedding and event industry is at a standstill because of coronavirus. Can't really do a lot because of, a lot of the regulations that you have. That has stopped. Me being a Black woman has not. You know what I mean? So I felt like I owed it to myself to make sure that I was staying true to me. And you know what? We can pass this ball back and forth, because how I said about being authentic. I knew that my life has value. My life matters. And that's, not being as, very superficial as the whole, not the Black Lives Matter thing is superficial, but touching on it superficially, saying that my life matters, but I have value.
Yeah.
And my voice, my experience has value.
Yeah.
And I don't allow anybody to take that away from me.
That's right.
So if you ever have a problem with anything that I have said, then I would hope that you would either come to me and discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't feel comfortable coming to me and discussing it, then you don't know me well enough to work with me. Then you don't know me well enough to communicate with me.
Right.
And if not, it's enough business out here for everybody. So you know what, to each its own. But I have found that throughout both Corona
Mm-hmm.
and this racial unrest, so many different character flaws, character triumphs have been revealed.
Mm-hmm.
I have now seen things, I don't want to work with certain people.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very vocal about this, especially the whole weddings on plantations thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a local wedding professional hop on my comments and say, you know what, now you're taking it too far. I'm like, wait.
Oh my.
So it makes you wonder, how have you been feeling about me this entire time? You know what I mean? And I heard the joke, and people feel comfortable to say certain things, but that comfort level, that's gone. You can't do that anymore.
And how are you taking it too far? Because
I have asked that you not get in your ream acra gown and walk down where enslaved people were whipped and beaten and raped and had their children stolen from them, where they were starved. I have asked for you not to do your bouquet toss or your send-off or your first dance on those grounds. You feel like that's taking it too far.
Right.
But oh my gosh, you know what? Everything else is just okay. So it, again, value.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that we value? And I'm pretty sure this person has never had a conversation with a person of color to understand what that means to them.
Yeah.
I have talked to several different wedding professionals, both Black and white, who have said they have gotten physically ill stepping on one of the, when you look at the contrast of what has happened there and what you are there, how do you focus? That's what one photographer told me. He said, Terrica, I couldn't even focus.
Right.
A band was like, I am sitting here singing. I am hired help on a plantation, and I am the only person that looks like me in this particular space.
Yeah. I think it also lets us know, I mean, because we've talked, I think we've heard the words, performative, right? Mm-hmm. Performative versus authentic. Mm-hmm. I think it also kind of establishes the division between what one looks like versus the other. Mm-hmm. And when you start to, push some of those buttons and you
see who's really about that life, right? You really see who means it. And you know what? Weed yourself out. I am so fine with that. Right. If you feel like me advocating for my community and myself is a bit too much for you, thank you. There is the door. Wear your mask on your way out and wash your hands. I don't care. Goodbye. That is it. I am going to be true to me, because you know what, when I ask for blessings over my business, I don't ask for money and success. I ask for good money. I ask for good success. I just don't want not all money is good money, but that's another,
that's
another
a whole nother episode.
Another day, okay?
Whole nother episode. We have to come back for part 2.
Whole other episode. But I want whatever it is that I bring into my home and into my business, into my space, into my spirit, to be good and nurturing for me, so that I can then in turn nurture my family, nurture my community. So if you are only getting me for hired help, or if you are only getting me because, I fit the box or the quota, then I don't want you. So to take it all the way back to your original question, no, I was not overly concerned, because at that point I just did not care anymore. I felt like, at this point, what good is it doing you or your community when this young man was literally killed 15 minutes away from your house, from where you work, and you do all of these things in the middle of the street, and those people still had not been arrested 3 months later? What good does it do me to be quiet? What good does it do me to be placable, or to be very I guess, conciliatory to people. That doesn't help anybody. That only props up the people who feel like it's not it only props up the people who think I take it too far. You understand?
Right, exactly. And I was about to say,
I have zero, listen,
the same way we say,
that's not part of my workout routine. I am not holding, no.
The same way we say to our, peers or people of non-color that silence is violence. It's the same thing when we don't use our voice to speak up as well. And that's one of the things I started realizing is that, even though I had to get rid of those things that I grew up with and thought, and I'm sure that at the time being raised, that was the era that, my mother and my grandmother were raised in, where you didn't talk about those things outside the home. Number one, because you didn't know if it might actually cause you the consequences of your life as well, right? But I also started to realize that, wait a minute, if I'm not talking about it outside of the home, then it also leaves opportunity and space for somebody to think that I am okay with some of these things that are happening. And, and I can't allow that, especially as a mother of two Black boys. I can't allow for there to be any fuzziness around.
Not only that, Janelle, it leaves so much space for other people to be louder about it. And it's just, it comes to a point where, I love conversations. I love debates. I love feedback. If you are not mentally prepared to have a conversation with me, please don't go there with me, because I bring receipts. I bring all of Wikipedia. I will bring the AMA journals. I am coming for you, from a place of intellect, because I want to have a conversation. I love having conversations with people who don't think like me,
Right. Isn't that how we grow?
I learn, and I'm like, okay, well, what makes you tick about this? We can't have those conversations if nobody is talking, or if only one side is talking. So think about it. If we say you don't talk about that outside of the house, then nobody talks about it. And then the very few people that talk about it, they're the loudest, and they get to be seen as the norm, as the standard. And the status quo will always be the status quo if it is never challenged. And maybe if we started having these conversations more around the kitchen table and, with each other, then we can challenge each other more. We can say, let's think about it from this way. And that's why I, with Braun and with Cece and, coming up with the whole Unity Through Community initiative for the wedding industry, it was so important. And people were like, oh, aren't you afraid that it's going to be performative? No, I'm not. Because, if I see that badge on your site, on your Instagram or wherever, I know I can go to you and I can say, how are things working out? You know what I mean? I will personally do that for you, because I want to make sure that I challenge you, you challenge me, that we all keep each other accountable, so that your sons don't have to go through it, so that my sons don't have to go through it, so that we end up stopping. If we're talking about, climate change, and we're talking about stopping the coronavirus, this is just as deadly. It has been as deadly, if not more, to our community.
Been around longer.
So hard by coronavirus. Our community is hit so hard by racial injustice. And there are other communities, we have our Latino community, we have our indigenous communities that also have their own struggles as well. And they're hit hard by corona too. And it's like, we have to advocate for each other. And part of that comes in knowing that you have value. You are so very important, even if you feel like you don't look the same, you're not as smart as, you don't have as much as. What you may lack in certain areas, you bring so much more somewhere else. And once we really internalize and we embrace our value and what we mean to ourselves and to our families and to our communities, then we can begin to have conversations about what's important to us and advocating for ourselves, our families, and our communities as a whole.
Yes. I love it. I love every single thing you have said. Listen, I don't think there's anything else to be said. I mean, you literally put it all out there. And, I'm glad that we had this dialogue and that we had this conversation, because there's so many different dichotomies, from, you know, women to moms to, you know, racial, you know, to the racial, you know, injustices, to the pandemic hurting people's careers and changing the game for people at home. I mean, there's just so many different layers, you know, and so that's one of the reasons why I felt it was so important to have this conversation, because through it all, you do have to find your voice. And I also believe that we all have a responsibility to use it, use it responsibly, but use it, because everybody's situation is different, yet that we still have a similarity. You know what I'm saying? Our individual situations are different, but we still are connected. There are still things that bring us all together. And so, like you said before, if you're not saying it, somebody else is, and they're saying it louder. It might be saying it incorrectly.
Yep.
You know, but you have to find a way to do that. And I love that you have made it very loud and clear that it starts with you really understanding, you know, who you are and how you want to show up, you know, for yourself as well.
Absolutely.
So,
And, you know, and using your voice doesn't always mean that you have to be the first person out there. You have to be protesting, or using your voice can be silent. And, you know, how we saw people using their voices and making masks when we didn't have enough PPE. It's your voice is your contribution. It's you feeling so deep rooted in your values that you feel moved to do something. So I don't want people to feel like, oh, it's got to be absolutely vocal or whatever. It doesn't always have to be. It can just be your love offering to healing whatever it is that's broken.
Right.
No,
Because everybody has a different part to play.
Exactly. Think about what you need. Think about what you want, and think about what you want for your children, for, you know, your parents, your family, your spouses. Think about what you want or what you would need, and then be that in whatever capacity that you can, keeping in mind that you can't pour from an empty cup. That's a whole other conversation for another day.
That first, because I don't think I've met a woman who has not had to learn that lesson.
Lesson, hard and fast. Hard and fast, yes.
So thank you so much. You know, I knew our time was going to fly by, because I already knew that this was about to be an amazing conversation.
I appreciate you for having me.
Yes. And I hope the audience out there, I hope that you guys took some nuggets away from this. Go back and re-listen to it again. And I hope it helps you to find your own authentic voice. You know, like I said, I don't profess to have found it in all areas of my life, but what I do know is that I'm glad I'm starting to show up and grow into those areas, you know, and because we're not a monolith, you know, so there are different areas that you find you are passionate about. And once you figure that out, then you start to learn how to advocate in an authentic way for those things you firmly believe in. So thank you, Terrica. Tell everybody, listen, I already know, I know how to find you, but not everybody else does. So tell them how to find
you. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Cocktail Terrica. You can also find me online at terricainc.com.
Yes, and she's an amazing professional, just as much as she is a mom. And you know, I definitely highly recommend you reach out to her, stay connected with her offline, and you know, we'll definitely have to come back and do a part 2, honey, because there was so much that was left unsaid.
I think we have so many pins in different conversations.
We can't fix the world in one episode, but thank you so much. I appreciate
it. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely wonderful. And I hope you guys enjoy this. Listen, we'll see you on the next episode next week, same time, same day. Remember, make sure you head over to the Eventful Life and subscribe if you haven't. Share it out with other amazing mompreneurs and women out there who need this right now. I want them to know that they are not, to Terrica's point, they are not alone. You may be out there thinking that, you know what, I don't know how to make all this happen right now, and I do feel like I'm in this boat by yourself, but I've been bringing you women who are showing you that you're not. So make sure you join in with us and participate in the conversation. It's your terms and your time. That's what the Eventful Life is all about. See you guys next week. Bye.